Vaults, henchmen, keycards, bosses, mythic loot. These have almost become a trend in Fortnite, and the seasons that follow this are commonly known as heist seasons. It's crazy to think that we already had 5 heist seasons so far in the 6 chapters of the game, and for some reason Epic keeps recycling the idea. In this video I'm going to give my thoughts on these seasons and why the entire concept behind them has been exhausted. But before we delve into that, it's important to know the history of such seasons. The first heist season we ever got was Chapter 2 Season 2. In this season, there were two factions, which were Ghost and Shadow, who were fighting to gain domination of the island. We got vaults, super broken mythic weapons, vehicles like the chopper, bosses and NPCs, and even Deadpool, which were never seen before mechanics in the game, and to be honest, players were surprised when the season launched, and overwhelmed by the amount of content it brought in. It felt like the game had been completely revolutionized and people actually enjoyed these unique mechanics. The next heist season came in Chapter 4 Season 1 with a limited time event called the Most Wanted that went from February 14 to 28. In this game mode, 5 new exotics were introduced into the game and the only way to get them was by defeating bosses and entering the vaults. The event and its exotics were super fun and players genuinely enjoyed the nostalgia this event brought to them due to its similarities with Chapter 2 Season 2. And they introduced event passes for the first time, which gave so many free rewards including a free skin. And I genuinely appreciate Epic for doing this, as it's a super cool way to keep players motivated into playing the game. At this point, players actually enjoyed the season and it felt more like a throwback to the Midas season than an annoying repeat of the same concept, as it was just a 2-week long event rather than being an entire heist season. But that all changed 3 seasons later when Fortnite introduced Chapter 4 Season 4, also known as the Last Resort. This season was practically a copy-paste of Chapter 2 Season 2, but with every aspect of it being worse. I know some of you may disagree, but I request you to hear me out. The main character for marketing the season was Town, who served the same role as Midas did in Chapter 2 Season 2. But unlike Midas, he didn't have any lore or backstory and just came into the game out of nowhere.
Hello there.
Midas was a champion in the island who was a mastermind behind the plan to remove the storm from the Fortnite island and liberate the loopers, while acting like a mob boss to hide this from the imagined order. So even if you didn't understand anything I just said, you get the point I'm trying to make, that he had a strong lore which gave the players a sense of connection towards him. But Town on the other hand was a time-traveling vampire who came out of nowhere. And while we had characters like Jonesy who were there from the beginning of Fortnite's storyline trying to stop Midas, in the last resort the heist crew that was supposed to stop Dawn was just a group of random people who had never appeared in the story before. Secondly, the vaults were harder to rob this season as bosses had much more health and broken abilities. And like adding fuel to the fire, the mythics were not even that great. In Chapter 2 Season 2, people wanted to defeat the bosses because the mythics were worth the risk and legendary loot was rare to obtain, but this was not the same in Last Resort. Comparing a mythic scoped SMG and DMR to a Midas' drum gun and Brutus' minigun is literally the sickest joke ever. And the stats were almost the same for the mythics and legendary weapons in the season, which gave no motive for the players to fight the bosses. With these reasons, I argue that Chapter 4 Season 4 was just a cheap copy of Chapter 2 Season 2. The next season I'm going to talk about was not advertised as a heist season, but it basically followed all the parameters needed for a heist season. This is Chapter 5 Season 1, which had no strong underlying theme and basically had bosses and vaults. The only new thing that was added were medallions, and they were dropped by bosses along with their mythic weapons. The concept of fighting bosses and opening vaults were pretty much the same, but again the mythics weren't that great and the innovative aspect of the season was lackluster. At least in Chapter 2 Season 2 we had unique POIs where the bosses and vaults existed, like the Shark, Rig, Grotto and Agency, while in Chapter 5 Season 2 all the POIs looked the same and were super boring and not even that memorable. Due to this season, it is a worse version of Chapter 2 Season 2. Next we got Fortnite Remix in the end of Chapter 5, which basically brought back the Chapter 2 island and the Midas season. Everything worked the same as the Midas season, but the addition of musical icons like Ice Spice, Snoop Dogg, Eminem and Juice WRLD just gave the game a refreshing touch, and the season's length of 30 days was perfect. For the new players, it's a very cool season and a brand new island they got to experience, and for old players, they were able to get a trip down the nostalgia lane while hearing the music of Eminem and Snoop Dogg. And because it's only a month long, it was perfect and people didn't get bored. So I would call this heist season a partial success. After that season, we finally have Chapter 6 Season 2, also known as Lawless. And this season also falls under the category of heist season. But the approach Epic had taken and the level of innovation and enhancement of older concepts made it more unique. While there's still bosses and walls in the game, everything about the way you fight them and the unique settings you have, like robbing the train and vans and the black market, made it unique. Exotics, similar to the ones in the Most Wanted event from Chapter 4 Season 1, were now available in the black market, and there were other ways to get them than fighting bosses. Hence, Fortnite Lawless proves to be a good example of how an already existing concept can be revamped in a unique and innovative way to seem completely different. And this is what the other heist seasons failed to do. So to put it simply, the problem I have with these heist seasons is that they're all based on the same underlying concept. Most of them felt like a repeat of their predecessors, but just inferior in every way. Except for the Lawless season, the other seasons brought very small changes and lacked any significant innovations to make them unique. Their mechanics, gameplay and features all felt repetitive, and there was not much scope for the developers to make it seem different enough for players to not feel like, oh, are you serious, another heist season, when they released. Additionally, even the story of these seasons were monotonous and the same. They often revolved around the boss or crime lord taking over the island and a group of people banding together to stop their syndicate and rob them. Kato Town, Montag, and Fletcher Kane basically serve the same role. They were introduced in the story as villains for the heist season and completely removed after the season ended. Due to this reason, each time a heist season came out, it just felt like a degraded version of the previous one and a lazy effort from the developers. So because of all of this, I really hope Fortnite never does a heist season again, and even if they do, I wish it's done in a different approach and a lot of new significant mechanics are added into the game, like how we got in Fortnite Lawless. What do you guys think about these seasons? Should they be continued or never done again? Let me know in the comments below. And before you leave, I upload Fortnite videos like this daily, so please consider subscribing if you want to help a small creator like me grow.